Yamaha is a cheat code. More specifically, Yamaha Motor Company. They co-developed some of the most recognizable engine monikers in Japanese history, beginning with the 3M for the original Toyota 2000 GT, the championship-winning 3S GTE, the 1JZ GTE, the high-revving 2ZZ GE, the powerhouse, the 2UR GSC, and even the ethereal 1LR GUE in the Lexus LFA. Yamaha's expertise in cylinder head design and keeping valve train components stable at high RPM grew a strong reputation in Japan, and subsequently got the attention of Eiji and Shoichiro Toyota. The outline of their request was to convert existing engines to dual overhead camshafts with higher redlines and more power, and also to assist in building the prototype for Japan's first supercar. That prototype would be finished in 8 months and known as the Toyota 2000 GT, which set 3 world records and a 1-2 finish at the 1966 Suzuka 1000 km endurance race. From that point on, Yamaha Motor Company was no longer just a motorcycle manufacturer. They were a cheat code. Each successful endeavor after the Toyota 2000 GT would lead Yamaha to answer a question that was brewing amongst leadership. If we are so good at building engines, why don't we just build our own car? Well, they did, and it was batshit crazy. This is the story of the OX99-11, a road car designed without compromise. And it would have been the world's first hypercar. The year is 1982, and Yamaha Motor Company is on the cusp of a revolutionary technology under the code name Genesis. Yamaha engineer Masaaki Yoshikawa would develop valve arrangements beyond the traditional and reliable 4-valve per cylinder design, with 5, 6, and 7 valve combustion chambers with varying spark plug placements. Testing showed the 5-valve head outflowed the 4-valve head, but as more valves were added, an interesting anomaly occurred where intake air velocity slowed down, which negatively affected torque, and the engine needed to be spun higher to realize any gain in power. It was a scenario of too much airflow, not enough displacement to utilize it. Also, the complexity of the valve train combined with added friction at higher RPM outweighed the airflow benefits. 3 inlet and 2 exhaust valves was the sweet spot. And Yamaha would unveil this technology to the public with their super sport model, the FZ750. The engineers at Yamaha saw the potential of Genesis beyond just sport bikes. The 5 valves per cylinder design, in theory, was universal, as all engines are by design just air pumps, and what works for a 750cc inline 4 should work for, let's say, a V8 racing engine in open wheel formula racing. And then Yamaha got to work. It was a dawn of a new era for Yamaha, and you can also have a new beginning thanks to our sponsor PDSdebt.com. You wouldn't ignore engine trouble, so don't ignore credit cards, personal loans, and medical bills, especially when PDS Debt has already helped hundreds of thousands take back the wheel on their finances. They understand your specific scenario and will help provide customized solutions to save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket. There's no minimum credit score required, and with an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews on Google, PDS Debt is a company you can trust, and they get results. So don't wait another month. Get back in the driver's seat in 30 seconds. Get your free personalized assessment and the best option for you at pdsdebt.com/337speed. That's pdsdebt.com/337speed, pdsdebt.com/337speed. Their first engine, the OX66, was designed for use in Formula 2 as the category offered the greatest freedom in regulations from an engine design perspective. It was a 75-degree bank angle V6 to be more compact. It used an over-square 85mm bore by 58.5mm stroke so it could rev to over 10,000 RPM, and at 2 liters of displacement combined with 5 valves per cylinder and 12.5-to-1 compression, it made 360 metric horsepower and only weighed 105 kilograms. The OX66 would go into testing in 1985, and in 1986 was officially offered by Yamaha to race teams, which the OX66 powered 3 race-winning cars out of 8 races in the season. The following year, the Japan Formula 2 Championship will be replaced with Formula 3000, and with it came a 3000cc engine displacement rule and 9,000 RPM limit, which made the OX66 basically obsolete. Yamaha was back at the drawing board, and they would come up with a cost-saving solution. They took the popular in Formula 3000 Cosworth DFV, which was a 90-degree bank angle 3-liter V8 with 4 valves per cylinder, and replaced the cylinder heads with their own 5-valve design, and called it the OX77, and it worked. In 1988, Aguro Suzuki would take the OX77 in his March 87B to a championship victory amongst the field of Mugen Honda MF308s. Yamaha had proven itself in the trenches, and the next logical step was to take their expertise to the most competitive racing series, Formula 1. Using their expertise from prior engines like the OX66 and OX77, they rushed to develop a new F1 engine in-house known as the OX88, a 3.5-liter V8 that narrowed the bank angle from 90 degrees to 75 degrees for compactness, and with 5 titanium valves per cylinder, it made 600 horsepower and revved to 12,000 RPM in testing. Yamaha just needed a team to take the chance on an unproven design, and the legendary Eric Zakowski's Zakspeed team would roll the dice.
Meanwhile, Zakspeed announced exciting plans to run Yamaha engines in '89. However, new designer Gustav Brunner doubted they would follow Honda's lead.
The Zakspeed-Yamaha partnership looked great on paper, but it would turn out to be one of the worst partnerships in Formula 1 history. The Zakspeed 891 was plagued with engine failure after engine failure, 17 in fact during the preseason. In Rio de Janeiro alone, there were 8 engine failures, with even a fresh engine blowing up after 5 seconds of idling. That season rendered no points for Zakspeed Yamaha. The West Tobacco sponsor would pull out from sponsoring Zakspeed, and Yamaha would pull the plug on the OX88 entirely.
Another Japanese manufacturer making news was Yamaha. Their Disastrous V8, which was fitted to the Zakspeed cars last year, is developing a new V12 for 1991.
Back in Japan, there were rumblings inside Yamaha to finally go forth with a supercar project as the economy was booming, and with such a poor result from the OX88, maybe a supercar could catapult Yamaha's brand prestige to the likes of Ferrari and Porsche. Yamaha brought on Takuya Ura, the aerodynamicist behind the first Japanese car to win its class at Le Mans, the Mazda 717C. Takuya's initial sketches were breathtaking. A road car with a fighter jet-style cockpit, swooping body lines, and inspiration from his prior work on the 717C. Yamaha would spend £2.5 million British pounds on a new facility under the name Ypsilon Technology to facilitate the production of the Yamaha supercar and also service the F1 program, which was absent from Formula 1 in 1990. For 1991, Yamaha had a new engine for their new partnership with British racing team Brabham. This time around, there were 4 more cylinders, now a V12 like Ferrari, The displacement stayed the same at 3.5 liters and 5 valves per cylinder was carried over. Brabham was happy with the new power plant, and Yamaha had an engine to put in their supercar. Ypsilon technology was in over their heads to complete the supercar in a timely manner, so they enlisted UK-based design firm International Automotive Design to speed up the process. The first prototype was unpainted, only wearing primer, and testing was done at night at the Millbrook Proving Grounds to keep the car a secret. The car was called the OX99-11, with the 11 indicating its red line, 11,000 RPM. The chassis was comprised of a carbon tub with the engine mounted directly to the bulkhead, double wishbone pushrod suspension front and rear, center locking magnesium wheels. The body panels were handmade from aluminum, and the weight was only 1,150 kilograms. The OX99 engine powering it had to be road legal, so it was fitted with a muffler and a 3-way catalytic converter, and the intake was revised to a variable runner manifold to promote torque below 6,000 RPM. It was truly a Formula One car for the road. IAD would complete 2 more cars, one in red and one in black, which used the same paint as Yamaha motorcycles. And it was unveiled in London in front of 100 journalists on May 12, 1992, with production proposed for 1994 at 20 to 30 cars per year.
The world's only Grand Prix supercar was recently put through its paces by former Formula One driver Paul Frere.
Driving the Yamaha was quite an experience, and I must say I'm very glad I did it.
Paul tested the OX99-11 at Spa-Francorchamps.
Only 16 days after the OX99-11 would be revealed to the world, another similar concept of a Formula One car for the road was unveiled, and it was by McLaren. The McLaren F1 was a magnificent specimen of British and German engineering. The BMW S70/2 V12 was a powerhouse at 627 metric horsepower, eclipsing the OX99-11. It was more practical as a road car with storage compartments. It had a higher proposed top speed, and most important of all, it had pedigree. In contrast, the OX99-11 was a more track-focused offering, but Yamaha forbid journalists from driving it till all the kinks were worked out. IAD and Yamaha had disagreements over budgets and timelines, ultimately having Ypsilon take over the project in-house where it originally started. The budget constraints also were a product of the Japanese economy declining, which in 1992, the Nikkei 225 index was in a sharp decline, falling significantly from its peak in late 1989. The proposed price of the OX99-11 would be near 100 million yen, or 800,000 US dollars, which was a tough sell, especially when the McLaren F1 would retail for slightly less and offer much more. Only 6 months after Ypsilon took over the project, Yamaha would pull the plug. Now we need to put some context in here because it sounds like Yamaha Motor Company was failing left and right, and that's just not the case. While the supercar project was going on, Yamaha was still being total badasses when it came to actual production-based engines. Ford Motor Company would have Yamaha build the engines for the Ford Taurus SHO, or super high output, and those little hand-built V6s were just as fast as Ford's own V8 Mustangs of the time. It was such an issue, Ford had to detune them to not ruin the Mustang's image in the early 90s. Yamaha's 5-valve technology would make its way into the Toyota Corolla 11 and Sprinter Terreno with the 20-valve cylinder head silvertop variant of the 4AGE, and it could rev to the moon. Yamaha would help Toyota with the 1JZ GTE and put their stamp of approval on the timing cover. This was all going on while the Formula One program was struggling to score a single point during the season, which goes to show how far removed from the consumer motorsports like F1 really are. After the F1 years, Volvo would even get in on the action with the B8444S, a transverse mounted Yamaha V8 that with some twin turbos and putting the engine in a completely different chassis could make for some interesting results. The Lexus ISF with its Yamaha developed 2UR GSE 5-liter V8 was a Japanese interpretation of the BMW M3, and while not as high revving as the S65, it was, and dare I say, more reliable. And then the Holy Grail. The Lexus LFA. Where the OX99-11 failed to realize the concept of an F1 car for the road, the Lexus LFA at least brought the audible aspect of an F1 car for the road. Now, Yamaha doesn't shy away from the OX99-11 either. They proudly show it off at their communication plaza in Japan. So maybe one day we'll get another Yamaha collaboration on an engine or even an entire car. But until then, Yamaha will still be the cheat code for manufacturers who want to inject a little more fun into every cylinder.